There comes a point where your life no longer fits you the way it used to, where the places, the people, and even the version of yourself you once understood start to feel unfamiliar. And you realize you're not lost, you've just outgrown the life you once belonged to. And somehow, growth starts to feel a lot like loneliness. Hi guys, and welcome back to our channel. In today's conversation, we're going to talk about the loneliness that comes with outgrowing your old life, and why becoming someone new often means leaving behind things that once felt like home. But before that, I just want to take a quick moment to share something with you. I recently released a book called The Day I Grew Flowers Out of My Face. It's a deeply personal and reflective piece about pain, growth, and learning how to exist with the parts of yourself you once wanted to hide. If today's topic resonates with you, I truly believe this book will speak to you in a deeper way. It's available on Gumroad and Amazon as an ebook and paperback. And if you prefer something you can hold on to, the hardcover version is exclusively available on Amazon. All right, let's get into it. There comes a point where your life no longer fits you the way it used to. You return to familiar places and notice how something feels slightly off, like you're standing in a room that hasn't changed, but you have. Conversations don't land the same way, the things that used to excite you don't hold your attention for as long, even your own reactions begin to surprise you. You pause in moments where you used to respond automatically. You question things you once accepted without thinking. And it's not always obvious at first. It creeps in quietly, in small realizations that don't seem significant on their own, but over time they start to form a pattern. You begin to understand that you're no longer aligned with the version of life you used to belong to. That realization is disorienting, not because something is wrong, but because something is changing, and change doesn't always come with clear direction. There's no instant replacement for what you're leaving behind, no immediate sense of where you now belong. You just feel the distance, and that distance can feel lonely. Not in the sense that you have no one around you, but in the sense that you don't feel fully seen in the spaces that once felt natural. You find yourself holding back parts of who you are now, not out of fear, but because there's a quiet understanding that not everyone will meet you there. So you sit with it. You sit with the realization that growth is not just about becoming, but also about releasing. Releasing habits that no longer reflect you, letting go of identities that once made sense, creating space by stepping away from things that no longer feel honest. And even when those things weren't good for you, they were still familiar. There's a certain comfort in familiarity, even when it limits you. It gives you something to hold on to, something predictable. So when you move away from it, even for the right reasons, there's a moment where everything feels uncertain. That's where the loneliness lives, in that in-between space where you've outgrown what was but haven't fully stepped into what's next. It's not a permanent place, but it can feel like one when you're in it. You start to question yourself. You wonder if you're changing too much or too quickly. You think about going back, not because it was right, but because it was easier to understand. But going back wouldn't feel the same, because once you've seen yourself differently, once you've felt that shift internally, it's hard to pretend you haven't. You can revisit the past, but you can't fully belong to it again. And that's something a lot of people struggle to accept. Because letting go is not just about losing something external, it's about accepting that a part of you has changed in a way that cannot be reversed. That can feel like grief, not for something that ended suddenly, but for something that slowly stopped fitting. You miss certain moments, certain versions of yourself, certain connections that felt easier before everything shifted. And it's okay to feel that. Growth doesn't erase the meaning of what came before. It just changes your relationship to it. What once felt like home can still matter to you, even if it's no longer where you belong. And understanding that helps soften the transition. Because then you're not trying to force yourself to disconnect completely. You're just allowing things to take a different place in your life. Not everything you outgrow needs to be rejected. Some things just need to be released gently. And in that release, you create room. Room for new connections that align with who you are now. Room for experiences that reflect your current values. Room for a life that feels more honest, even if it's still taking shape. But that room doesn't fill instantly. There will be quiet days, moments where you feel the absence of what used to be, times where you question if the growth is worth the distance. And in those moments, it's important to remember that loneliness is not always a sign that something is wrong. Sometimes it's a sign that something is shifting, that you're in the process of building a life that fits you more accurately, even if it's not fully formed yet. You're not meant to stay in spaces that no longer reflect who you are just to avoid feeling alone, because that kind of belonging comes at the cost of authenticity. And eventually, that cost becomes too heavy. So instead of rushing to fill the space, allow yourself to understand it. Pay attention to what you're drawn to now. Notice the kind of conversations that feel meaningful. Recognize the environments where you feel more like yourself. Those are signals. They're guiding you towards something that fits. It just takes time. And while you're in that process, it's okay to feel both grateful for what was and open to what's ahead. You don't have to rush the transition. You don't have to force clarity. You just have to trust that outgrowing your old life is not the end of belonging. It's the beginning of finding a place that feels more like you. If this conversation resonated with you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more reflections like this. It really helps this space grow and reach more people who might need it. And before you go, I want to ask you something. What is one thought about yourself that you've been believing for a long time that might not actually be true? Take a moment to reflect on it, and if you feel comfortable, share it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.